Hello everyone, welcome to Meat Cutting. My name is Paul Malcolm, and to start with, what is all this vegetable soup here? It's always good to know. I always was raised with people that were not super nice. It seemed the more embroidery they had on the jacket, the meaner they were. But for me, I just never want to stop learning, and I like to show students what that means. So MSED is Masters of Science in Education, specifically in technology in the classroom. I just wanted to be a better teacher, so I went to school to become a better teacher. CEC, Certified Executive Chef through the ACF. CCE is Certified Culinary Educator through the ACF again. CHE is Certified Hospitality Educator. And WSET is the Wine, Spirits, and Education Trust. I have the Advanced Wine and Spirits because I like fermented stuff. And then the CMCL2 is Certified Master Composter Level 2. Very exciting certification and helped to get the compost program started here at Johnson Wales. To begin with, you can't actually click on this in this actual video that you're watching. So click on it, watch the video. It just kind of gives you the idea of the mindset of where we are and where we're headed throughout the course of meat cutting. So watch that video. Very exciting, and it's a fun cartoon. So to start with, meat is big business in the United States and has been for a long, long time. In the United States, we represent approximately 1/15 of the total world population. Although we represent that very small speck, we also consume about 1/3 of the world's total output of meat, which is substantial. So why do people not eat meat? And one of the biggest reasons, and some very valid ones, is through vegetarian concerns. Some of the concerns that vegetarians have, and the reason that they've chosen not to eat meat, are clear cutting of land. So it takes a lot of land to raise cattle. There are approximately 1.5 billion cattle grazing, approximately 24% of the total land mass. So that's a big chunk of land, and as we see more people growing and we see urban sprawl taking place, we see more land being cleared for living and less land being cleared to actually raise animals and natural spaces. Additional land is also needed for grain, so not only do the animals need to walk around, but they also need to eat grain. Sadly enough, we have taken an animal which is a ruminant, which has 4 stomachs, and it eats primarily grass or is a graze feeder, and we feed it grain, which changes the genetic makeup of it, changes the muscle structure. So we need to raise the grain, so that also takes a substantial amount of land as well. Just to understand how much grain it takes 2 pounds of grain to get a pound of chicken, 4 pounds of grain to get a pound of pork, and 8 pounds of grain to get a pound of beef. So that's quite substantial. A lot of people say, especially vegetarian concerns not eating meat, is why don't we just take that grain instead of raising it, knowing that it takes so much to raise that amount of meat? Why don't we just feed it to people? And that's a very good question. It comes down to meat tastes good. The problem with meat tasting good is it does take longer for our body to break it down and extract the nutrients to feed our muscles. Grain is more readily available. Your body identifies it, breaks it down, subtracts what it needs for energy production, gets rid of it, helps to clean out your colon, all sorts of good stuff. So maybe don't eat as much meat, maybe eat a little bit less meat. Even the standard combination of legumes and grains, like red beans and rice, doesn't give you the complete proteins that meat does. Meat is very nutritionally valuable, so that is another good reason why we do that. The 3 largest meat packers producers in the United States are Conagra, which Monfort is a branch of Conagra, IBP, which is Iowa Beef Packers, and Cargill, of which XL is a branch of. Cargill is the biggest of the 3, and Cargill is not just a meat packer. Cargill is also invested in other facilities. They're in chemical production, they're in seed production, they're all over the place. They've purchased seed companies that supply the farmers, and the challenge with that is they sell the seeds back to the farmers at an inflated rate. They then buy back the beef on the hoof because they are the processors as well, so they've kind of created a monopoly. They're selling the seeds to the farmers at an elevated price, and they're buying the meat that the farmer is raising back at a decreased price, so the farmer is kind of wearing the brunt of that. Small-scale farmers are being displaced as a result and are unable to compete. One of the quick and feasible solutions to this is to supplement the grain with acceptable protein additives. Now you're wondering, that just sounds weird. It is. The additives are byproducts of processing. Oddly enough, they're sold to the farmers by Cargill. Essentially, they're leftover items that have little to no value, among which are brain, spinal cord, connective tissue, all sorts of good, tasty bits. Yummy. Um, and now what we've done is we've taken an animal, which is a ruminant, we talked about earlier being a grazer or something that walks around eating grass. Whenever you see a cow chewing its cud, essentially what it's doing is regurgitating the food, and it's chewing the cellulose fiber and breaking the nutritional value out of it and then passing it through its stomach. So now what we're doing is we are changing, essentially, by changing the diet of the animal, we're now changing how the species is being raised and produced. It also results in things like mad cow disease and E. coli. Because of how we're feeding them. We're feeding them grain, which they are not used to eating, and then we're feeding them tremendous amounts of grain rapidly because we want them to get to market weight as quickly as possible. The problem with that is, as the grain sits in the stomach and is not digested fully, generally they have little juicy burps and they have juicy poos. And as a result of that, that gets on the fur, and that's where E. coli comes from. E. coli is part of their natural digestive system, helps to break down the food. When that gets on the exterior of the animal, we generally aren't running around rubbing poo or excrement on ourselves, hopefully, but when it does happen, that's where we have the contaminant E. coli come in contact. Now, how you're thinking, do we get E. coli from the exterior or the hide onto the meat? It's through the fabrication process. Once we cut through that skin into the interior of the meat, if there's a speck of contaminant, that's going to cause the problem. Mad cow disease comes from the consumption of, it was isolated to brain and spinal cord. When the animals were eating that as a byproduct or supplement to grain, that would change the structure and expose them to contaminants which are contained in that, leading to BSE, which is called bovine spongiform encephalopathy, which is the equivalent of mad cow disease. Oddly enough, it's also found to have very close similarities to something called Creutzfeldt-Jacobs disease, and also similar to Alzheimer's. When we're raising and distributing beef, there are many things that we do to make sure that that beef is safe when we get it. So we'll do inoculations of antibiotics. The primary reason for that is just like when you go to school. You get an inoculation before you can go to school to make sure that you're happy, healthy, and in line with everyone else, because it's a government protocol. So we ideally give it to people and animals to kill the bacteria to make sure that they are strong and healthy animals. Now, do we need to give it to them on a regular basis? No. Could we just call the animals that are sick? Yes. That's one way of doing it. But if you're a commercial farmer, if you are culling animals and they're not making it to market, then obviously that's not putting money in your pocket, and that's where that becomes a problem. The most common antibiotics that are prescribed to animals are penicillin and tetracycline. If you've been to the doctor lately and gotten antibiotics, you'll find that there are derivatives of penicillin and tetracycline that you're getting. The problem with that is, when we are doing general inoculations of animals, generally, hopefully we're using needles new for each animal, but if you're a commercial farmer and you realize that needles are expensive, you might get as many pokes out of them as possible. And so you have cross-contamination. Anyone sharing needles knows that that's a problem. Make sure you heat that up before you use it. It takes roughly 30 days for the antibiotics to leave the animal completely. So if you are at market weight on Monday, then you're great. If you're just 5 pounds shy of that and you can gain that in a day with no problem, you're going to be inoculated on Monday, you're going to go to market on Tuesday, you're theoretically going to be in the market for distribution or consumption the following Tuesday, so 7 days later. So the antibiotics are at maximum levels. So the problem with that is, as we eat that meat that has high levels of antibiotics, it decreases our ability. We are exposed to those antibiotics, and it decreases the susceptibility to the antibiotics that we are prescribed. And this is what I just said. And that's it. That ends the first lecture. So thank you for participating. See you tomorrow. Make sure your uniforms look nice. Make sure your shoes are happy and shiny. And make sure you do all the homework. I know that it's a lot, but it will pay off. All right. Have a great night. Take care. Bye-bye.